Well, happy Halloween, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm just going to start off by saying I do feel shame, okay? I've been doing 20 years of television. This is the first year I have not dressed up for Halloween, and I apologize. The week got away from me. I don't know what to do. Listen, I'm not going to make excuses. I didn't dress up. But my first guest, she dressed up in the theme that we're going to be talking about here today. Sandora is back from a Cultivated Art. She's also a certified landscape designer. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. You're dressed as a...
Garden lady.
A garden lady. Okay.
I bring the
dressed up
garden
as a
with
host.
me.
There you go.
See, we're both on theme.
Perfect. Today, we're going to talk about how to, I guess, prepare for the fall. Because last time you were on, we thought about doing that. And then something else came up, but you said we have to do this one because this is probably one of the main things you get asked about all the time.
I certainly get asked a lot lately about what do I do to tend, because people have gone from sort of conventional gardening where you do all this cleanup in the fall and you take everything away.
Right.
And now we're trying to garden more ecologically, and people are like, I don't think I'm supposed to do anything. Am I allowed to do anything? And they're actually really nervous about doing anything in the garden.
Right.
So yes, there are some things there's some things you should be doing this time of year,
Okay.
and then there's certainly some things you can be doing this time of year. On the should,
yes.
You should be clearing leaves off of drains, off of walking surfaces, anywhere they can be presenting a slip hazard,
Okay.
or that they can be interfering with rainwater.
Right.
Removal, you need to have them cleared away.
Okay.
So that's important for just a functioning of the city and people not getting hurt standpoint.
Right. And it's interesting that you say it that way because everyone at home's like, what do you mean just the paths and the drainage? Because...
Leave the leaves.
Yes.
Yes. And
that's been something that's been gaining momentum. And why?
Well, for lots of reasons. For one thing, from a purely cost and environmental standpoint, packing all of these leaves into bags and shipping them away has a huge environmental footprint. But those aren't just leaves in the bag. It's all kinds of life. You've got all of these critters. You've got all kinds of overwintering pollinators. You've got your fuzzy bear caterpillars. You've got all of that life in there. And not only are you taking away the ones that are in there, even if some of them are still active enough when you're going through the yard to escape it,
right.
That's how they overwinter. That's their protection. That's where they spend their winter. And it's not just winter. That's also the layer where you get all the natural composting happening on that surface of the soil where you've got decaying organic matter. And it's the leaves, but I also am like, leave the stems too.
Right.
So in most cases, leave all the stems standing in your garden for the winter as well. People are kind of like, what do I have to clean up? And I'm like, not very much at all.
But does it layer, Sandora? You know what I mean? Like, I think some people listening right now are, well, what if, come spring, and I have this layer down, like how quickly will it compost, right?
Pretty darn quickly. There's
Really,
two things that happen. One is most of them are pretty darn good at pushing right up through that.
Right.
And the other thing being, there are a lot of critters that will break that down and use it for food, from the microorganisms, all the fungi, all the bacteria, but also all the little soil level creepy crawlies that actually help make healthy soil. Now, I will say that if you've been clearing all your leaves off for decades and then suddenly you leave all your leaves and you leave a great big deep pile, they might not all break down really quickly because all the critters that are usually there to help decompose them, they're all missing from your soil. It's going to take 2 or 3 years until the composting rate of those leaves really speeds up to the point where it just happens all on its own every year.
Okay.
So if you're in that situation, still leave all your leaves.
Okay.
But you might go out in the spring and poke through your garden, loosen up any that have gotten packed down or matted.
Right.
And make sure that the plants can poke up through them.
Right, because I've seen that.
There.
I know what you're talking about. Sometimes it's like a carpet, right? And it is so thick. So come spring, you want to pull those apart a little bit and spread them out. When you talk about sort of trimming back, how do you know what to trim back and what not to trim back?
So again, plants, most of them, they don't need for their own benefit to be trimmed back. So why do we trim them back? Well, we trim them back because they grew up really tall and they had these glorious flowers, and now once they get wet and they get snow on them and they're going to go fall over our walkways or our driveways, go through, cut those back before the snow flies. You don't even have to remove that from the garden. You can just like cut them short enough so they're not going to break off, and then you can move the stuff just it can stay in the garden, just move it further from your walkways.
Okay.
Remove the trip hazards. That's sort of, remove the trip hazards, and then any that are going to fall over and then get caught in the snow clearing and get ripped out of the ground, because that will happen.
Yeah,
if they've got their big stem sticking out in the sidewalk plow, or your driveway clearing comes out, there goes your lovely plants. So trimming those stems back so that they're not on those surfaces is another of those things we should be doing now. But there's not a lot the garden needs this time of year. But they are offering something. I'm still gathering seeds. So
yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So now is the time to probably look for some of those seeds that,
some of the
that
latest
make themselves
ones.
Available?
Yeah, so some of the latest ones. So a lot of the asters, that's some of the fluffy ones I've got. I went out and clipped some things from the garden so I'd at least have something of a prop here. But you know, the asters have all these floofy tops on them. Those are seeds, and you can gather them if you want to be starting seeds or donate them to the Wildflower Seed Library. But also, if you do just leave them, you get a lot of the little juncos and the little redpolls and the little tiny birds. It's awesome to watch them. I can see them right through my front window on these asters, and like these little tiny birds clinging to these things, eating all the seeds out. It's great. I'm in the middle of the city, and I'm watching these birds come to my yard to eat
juncos
seeds.
like those. Those are such beautiful birds too.
They are.
Oh yeah, if you can attract them into your backyard with something that's native, they're magical to watch, eh?
They are. They're just lovely.
Let's talk about looking around your space, and when you look around your space, what sort of questions should you be asking yourself?
So all those plants have had a whole season to get really big, and sometimes they get a little bit bigger than we'd first expected or planned for when we're being really optimistic in the spring and going, I can fit one more plant in. So it's to get ahead of that spring, we have enough room for all the plants we could want. This is a good time to look around your yard and your garden. Are there plants that have grown up and fallen over?
Okay.
Do those ones need to be further back in the garden? Do you need to do a little bit of proactive placing of some branchy sticks in the spring so they can come up and have a bit more support? You won't always remember that till spring, but this is the time to take a look around for that. Also, did any poor little plants get lost over the summer because their bigger neighbors overwhelmed them? And did the rambunctious species, so New England asters with their gorgeous purple flowers, and some of the goldenrods, especially Canada goldenrod, they're very enthusiastic. They take over space.
Right.
And that's great when they're sort of coming into a disturbed ecosystem and they're filling it up full of plants that will feed all of the wildlife. But when you've got a garden that you're trying to fill full of native plants and have some diversity, it's okay to do some thinning of those really rambunctious species. And sometimes, again, when people start to do ecological gardening, they feel like, well, I can add plants, but I can't remove anything, especially anything native.
Yeah.
But yes,
you can, right?
You can.
Yeah,
and
for
it's
sure.
a good time to look around and sort of see where plants are getting overwhelmed.
Well, and because some of these native ones, they spread like
They do.
very, very quickly. And you might buy a little something like this, and then all of a sudden it's like this, right?
Yep.
And it's starting to take over your garden. And there's other reasons, too, to look at your garden, because you may want to move some things around for other reasons. So we'll come back and talk to Sundora about that. We'll be back with her right after this. Don't go anywhere. Back talking gardening with Sundora from A Cultivated Art, and we finished off talking about looking at your space and figuring out, and part of the importance of that is some things may need to be moved for various reasons. What are some of those reasons? Let's finish off with that.
So there can be crowding going on. There can be we made our best guess, but we put the plants in where our best assessment of was a good spot for them. But sometimes after some observation, we conclude that maybe wasn't a spot that plant was happy, or that plant is like so happy that they're a lot more rambunctious and vigorous than we expected, and they just need to be over with the rambunctious species. So there's often some sorting out we need to do as the gardens start to mature and the plants start to interact with each other.
And will some of the plants, perhaps now that they've grown maybe a little bit taller and you've got some shorter ones, maybe the sun starts getting blocked and that plant that you thought needed sun is now in the shade? Is that part of the idea as well?
You can end up with the light conditions in your space will actually often change, and sometimes faster than we tend to allow for. My yard's gone from being a fairly sunny yard to being a fairly shaded yard in the last 15 years. So I actually went through recently in one area, I took out all of the sun plants that had been put in quite a few years ago, transplanted them elsewhere, and I just introduced a whole bunch of shade-loving species, which if this was happening as part of a normal sort of intact ecosystem progression, they would have been nearby shade species to move in. But because we're in each in these little islands of space we're working on, we often have to bring those plants in because there's not a nearby patch for them to seed in from.
Right.
And this is a great time of year to sort of assess what's going on in your garden. And you can either transplant this time of year, and you can actually transplant pretty much until the ground freezes. So you wouldn't necessarily be tucking in plants from out of pots this time of year, but you can absolutely dig up plants and move them over this time of year.
Right.
And they handle that just fine. They sort of start spring not even noticing that anything happened because they're pretty much dormant.
They're quite resilient, right? I think sometimes, when we're, planting and we get something, and you're supposed to tear apart a little bit. Now you can just see people are nervous, right? Or even digging up an existing plant. But that root system will come back fairly quickly, right?
Yeah, and especially because this time of year the roots don't have as many of the fine feeder roots and stuff going on because they're going dormant. So they're actually it'll be less shocky on them, and especially now that it finally rained because it was so dry.
Right, yeah.
Finally rained. It's a great time to go out, and I usually use a garden fork because you can kind of stick in the ground and lift the plants up, and it's a good time of year to do some rearranging. But if you're not going to do it right now, the other thing I really recommend, because we think we'll remember, we think we will. How are we going to forget that plant needs to move come spring? But it's a lot of months till then, and that plant won't look the same come then. So this is the time of year that if you're not going to go out and do it, take your cell phone, doesn't have to be anything fancy, on your camera, put it on video mode.
On video,
And then do a little narrated video of all the changes you want to make and save it.
Right.
And put a note in your calendar in the spring. Go, remember that video you made? Because it is a really great way to document what fall looks like, because when we go out into the garden in the spring, they look completely different, especially perennial gardens. My back garden, it's this tall this time of year, and in the spring there's plants coming up and they're blooming at this height, and there's all these layers of things that happen. And in the spring, sometimes it's hard to believe that it's a little overpacked. Well, from an ecosystem standpoint, it's not overpacked, but there's a few plants that would be happier elsewhere, and I'm going to move those over, and I'm going to tuck some more species in because I can never resist adding some more species. But making a record of what you want to change, you're going to so thank yourself come spring that you did that if you do that now.
I've heard, some people love to bring plants indoors so that they can enjoy them, for the winter. Does it make any sense?
It doesn't make sense for the plants that are native to here, because the plants that are native to here, they expect winter.
Right,
and they're not happy without winter, actually. They need to go dormant and have their freeze cycle and then come back up with fresh growth. And in the spring, the day lengths aren't right, the humidity's too low in our houses, for various reasons to do with some things germinating too quickly and unexpected times when I had some winter sowing that I started and then I didn't get them outdoors, and 2 days later a plant that was supposed to require winter stratification sprouted. And I was like, okay, I guess you have to stay inside for the winter. But they're not happy. I can keep them they're under lights, you can keep them alive, but they're so much happier if you leave them outside. Indoor plants, most of them come from tropical rainforests. Or deserts and things like that. They're happier in the conditions in our homes. Native plants, they want to be outside. Enjoy them through the window this time of year.
What about bulbs? right? That people that, you know, want to dig them up, and I remember wrapping them in newspaper and everything. Does that make sense? Are those the type of things you should be thinking of too?
Yeah, so if you've got tender bulbs, you really want to be bringing them in right around now. Now, any of the tender bulbs are not going to be native plants simply because none of the plants that evolved here need to be dug up and brought indoors.
Okay.
But most of the tender bulbs, they're not any harm to the ecosystem. So if you love your gladiolas or you love your dahlias in your otherwise ecological garden, by all means have your gladiolas or dahlias. But you do need to bring them in, let them dry out a bit, clean the soil off of them.
Okay.
The trick is finding a spot that's cool but not freezing, and where you can keep them damp but not too wet. And I know that's a challenge for our houses, which are so climate controlled.
Right.
It's hard to have. Most of us don't have a root cellar.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have a root cellar, that's where to store your
roots. You're good to go. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Lastly, Ottawa Wildflower Seed Library. There's events coming up, right, for the next little while.
Yep. They've started on the giveaway stage. So there was all that packing and gathering that's going on, and there's still that's going on. But they've started on their giveaways. It'll start on Saturday, and there'll be one every Saturday for the next 6 weeks, and then they've got one more after Christmas. And they will often, as seeds keep coming in, they'll have different species sometimes at the different ones. So if you want to hit a couple of them, you'll actually see some variation in selection. And they offer the widest selection of native seed species this side of Minnesota.
Wow. If you want to find out, by the way, the full schedule, because it moves around, which is great. So if you live in a different area, wildflowerseedlibrary.ca/events, and you can find a lot more information on the website itself. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back to the show. Changing gears a little bit. We're going to be talking about art, and not to say that gardening is not a form of art, but this is a fantastic art show, unlike any art show you've probably been to. Here to tell us more about it, Ross Rayom is the founder of Artissima, also a wonderful artist himself, and Leanne Musa, president and founder of All Saints Development and chair of The Other Hill. Welcome. Great to have you both here.
Thank you.
Ross, you know, I mentioned it's unique off the top. What makes this particular show so unique?
A couple of things. First of all, the venue is unlike anything you've probably ever seen in an art show. On the All Saints building, it's fantastically beautiful with stained glass. So putting art in that context with vaulted ceilings and stained glass, it has a completely different experience, a magical feel to it.
Right.
So that's that's really a special place, separate from what we transform it into a gallery, basically.
Right. It's already a piece of art in itself,
And
you bring in other beautiful pieces of art,
fantastic
right?
stained glass.
Yeah.
You know, it's worth going just to see that, actually.
Nice.
So that's the other thing that's really different is we're kind of the last artist-run art festival in the city.
Really?
What are left, the other ones that are left are basically corporate entities.
Okay.
So this is with Art in the Park, which we're affiliated with. This is a artist-run, more of a community-based operation than the bigger ones, which are just about to make money.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, is that why that's important? Is because those are real money makers, and not necessarily. You're obviously showcasing, artists, both of them, right?
Yeah, we'd like to sell art, of course, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it's not driven by someone's interest other than the community and the community of artists,
Right.
as well as the community itself. So that really, the third thing I would say is that we're really pushing this idea that artists will show new work. This will be an annual, like Paris Salon back in the 1880s, where you have your own gallery, maybe where you show your work, but once a year the artists get together and show their best, newest, finest work in a group setting. And so that is also different than your sort of trade show, standard art show.
And Leanne, he stole a bit of your thunder, right, with our All Saints, but it is a special place, beyond just, the beautiful building itself. Why?
Well, originally it was a number of neighbors who came together to actually buy that property and preserve it.
Right.
And I think what we've tried to do there is turn it into a space that continues to be a gathering space. Like historically, right, these churches they were a gathering space but under a religious pretense.
Right.
And now, really, this is about a place, an open, progressive space where people can come together and do the kinds of things that are like contemporary things, like hold art shows.
Right. I want to talk about the Other Hill as well. Tell me a little bit about the idea behind that.
So The Other Hill is a charitable nonprofit organization that is focused on inspiring the conversations we need to have as a country.
Okay.
From King Edward to Strathcona Park, we will bring Canada's leading authors, artists, musicians, performers to inspire these kind of conversations.
Right.
And I think this is the second year that we've partnered with Artissima, and we are thrilled to be holding the Friday night event, which is it's an opportunity for people to come together, look at the art, but also talk about what's important in terms of art in public spaces, cultural spaces, what this means to both the city and the country.
Right.
And that's really what we're doing as an organization.
I love the philosophy. I mean, it's incredible. We should talk about this piece of art because you brought this particular piece along, Ross, not only because he's a wonderful artist, but it's special within this show, right?
Yeah, this will be the piece that is the centerpiece of the silent auction on Friday night, being donated by Bad Boy, and the proceeds will go to the Other Hill.
Nice.
And it's actually called the Guardians of Sandy Hill.
Oh, really?
Which was,
Oh,
he did
I love that.
before we knew any of this, that's what the piece was.
That's amazing.
So that'll be on for Friday night.
And what I love about Bat's work, and I know Ross's work, he does a lot of historic pieces as well, the idea with Bat's work is it's the built heritage that comes to life. It's
Right.
not a flat history. It's actually like, how do you make this vibrant and contemporary and speak to us today? And I think that's why this is the perfect piece to be auctioning off for the Other Hill.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. It's such a beautiful piece, and Bad Boy, along with Ross, by the way. If you've never seen Ross's pieces, I mean, he is next level artist, and I'm not just saying that because you're here, Ross.
Thank you.
Honestly, I every time I see your pieces, especially live in person, they're just magical.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, Bat and I are both interested in the community side of it.
Yeah.
And the idea of using, heritage as sort of a starting point for what we're doing. I think it's really, really important
Right.
that artists, be aware of where they're from and what they're representing, as opposed to just painting pictures.
Right.
And Bat created Art in the Park, which I'm the president of now.
Yeah.
So same thing there. That's a community-oriented event as opposed to a corporate event.
The artists that are going to be there, different types of mediums. Tell me a little bit about
Mostly
that. Ron.
painting this year.
Okay.
We had some sculpture last year. David Ledbetter is joining us this year. He's a very well-known Canadian artist. Janet McKay. So we've really recruited heavily. Last year was the first year. It was basically, can this thing get off the ground?
Right. Right.
It was a tester.
Yeah, it was Spruce Goose. Can it fly? Yes or no?
Right.
And this year we actively went out and tried to recruit, and we could demonstrate to artists. We pulled it off last year.
Right.
Here's the venue. It's beautiful. It was very successful. So there's some really terrific. And you can now go on the website and preview some of the art that
Oh,
you'll be
really?
seeing.
Okay.
On the Artissima website. That's a new thing I've put in this year.
Good for you. That's a great idea. And Leanne, it's not just the Friday night, right? It's the entire weekend.
Absolutely. Friday night is the launch, and it's the launch of Bat Boy's show Bridges, which we also think
Okay.
is really symbolic of the Other Hill. And then it will continue all weekend long. Working Title Kitchen, our little restaurant downstairs, will be up there selling some pastries and coffees.
Fantastic restaurant, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is this something that you're looking at doing sort of more often? I don't necessarily mean, art shows in general, but you mentioned before you're trying to bring in other members of the community. Do you have like an event schedule?
So the Other Hill will be announcing an event schedule this year.
Okay.
We'll also be calling for submissions, and so I think you can watch for what we'll be doing in the next little while. We launched about a month ago with Jessie Wente, the chair of the Canada Council for the Arts, and I think you'll see that this is just the start of a real transformation
I love it.
in the Sandy Hill area.
Well, and not only just for Sandy Hill, but for
city.
for all of Ottawa, because we need
Absolutely.
spaces of this size, right? That's something that's really been missing in the city. Thank you so much to you both. Really appreciate you joining me today. Again, they're located at 330 Laurier Street East, and you can visit the website to see some of those pieces. As Ross said, we'll be back with more right after this. Well, we're back to talk about a different form of art, and that is filmmaking. And there are so many talented filmmakers here in Ottawa and right across the country. And the shame is sometimes they don't have an opportunity to showcase all of that talent. Well, they are in luck because the Ottawa Canadian Film Festival is back again this year. And Blair Campbell, the co-founder, is back here on the show. It's like our reunion every year now. Blair, I love it.
Exactly.
And I did mention, Blair, the fact that there is a lot of talent in this country and in this city. And is this one of the reasons why you decided to start this film festival is because it's very difficult, right, to have your film seen by a large group of people?
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes.
We started our festival 8 years ago with that goal in mind, that there is a tremendous amount of very talented people here in Ottawa and filmmakers across Canada who are independent filmmakers, but not necessarily a lot of areas where their films can necessarily be seen. So we wanted to create an opportunity for those films to be seen, and also an opportunity for the artists to participate in that experience.
Blair, why do you feel that is such a big challenge for these independent films to get an opportunity to showcase themselves?
Well, in a lot of cases, a lot of the sort of independent movie theaters kind of closed through the
Right.
years. We're very, very fortunate in Ottawa. We have the Bytown Cinema, where we have our festival. There's also the Mayfair Theatre. But
Yeah.
a lot of opportunities for films to be screened kind of went away because a lot of independent theaters went away. It's now multiplexes, large corporate environments, not necessarily that friendly for somebody who's on a small budget with an independent film to get their film actually seen.
Right. This is jury selected, is that right? So
That's
tell me
right.
about that process and how that goes about.
So we've sort of experimented with different approaches to our juries every year. This year, we had an artist-led jury, so we had 4 artists. They viewed all the films and they came up with our final selection. Now this year we are showing 16 films, 2 of which are feature length. One's a documentary, the other is a narrative story. The balance are shorts, but that's out of over 200 films that were actually submitted.
Wow. That's
a lot of
impressive.
films.
Well, it goes to show what a great success it's been so far if that many people are trying to showcase. Is the other special part of this, do all the filmmakers come to
Well,
the
this
event?
year we actually have a record number of filmmakers that are attending. We're
Excellent.
really happy about that because of the 16 films, we have 10 filmmakers who are actually attending our festival this year, including local filmmakers as well. So we're really excited about that. The main reason being is that whenever possible, we try to arrange for direct Q&As after the films are shown between the audience and the artists. So for me personally, that's the secret sauce in the whole process. That opportunity for the artist to talk directly to the audience to talk directly to the artists themselves about the films they've just seen. Because seeing a film in a theater is so much different than watching it at home or on a streaming device. It's a communal experience. Everyone shares the same experience at the same time.
Yeah.
And the opportunity at that moment when your emotions are there and your thoughts are there to share that directly with the artist is, to me, invaluable. And I know the artists really appreciate it.
Nice. What about different themes? What sort of themes are we going to see across the board?
Everything. Dramas, documentaries, funny stuff, sad stuff, like it's everything. And one of the things I quite like about our format is that the first 2 nights, which is our festival runs the 7th, 8th, and 9th of November, the first 2 nights, the 7th and 8th, next Thursday and Friday, are all shorts with one feature included. Shorts are great because I call it the buffet method of watching a film. You can go in, you can look at a film, it's a short. If you don't like it, the next one you're going to love.
Right.
And so you have a chance to sample a whole bunch of different genres, but in bite-sized pieces. I'm keeping the food analogy going.
I like it, yeah.
In bite-sized pieces, so you can decide what the style that you like. And it's also an opportunity to see different artists who have a different approach, they have different styles. And I mean, who knows? Maybe one of those films or one of those artists you'll recognize on a bigger screen someday.
When you say short films, does it vary as far as how the length of a short film? Does there have to be a particular criteria?
Yeah, our rule is a short film is really anything under 30 minutes.
Okay.
Right,
okay.
and a feature film is anything past that, up to a feature film in our last evening is 2 hours long.
Okay.
Right, so as you would see in a normal commercial cinema.
Let's talk about just the film scene in Canada and Ottawa. Obviously these independent films, it's important to have festivals like this, but overall, sometimes, we look to the U.S. and Europe and we feel like, our industry, the film industry seems a little smaller. Have we seen a growth here in this country?
Oh, I definitely think we have.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is because the tools to make films are more affordable and they're easily accessible. So there's a greater opportunity. One of the things I like to do is I like talking to young people and just say, hey, you've got the world's most powerful movie camera that you carry around and scroll TikTok on. Why don't you just go make a movie?
Right.
Right, let's just go and do something. Like the tools are available, whereas before, even when I was young, the tools were much more expensive, harder to access, a much more involved process. Now anyone can be a filmmaker if they just want to sit down and make films.
Yeah,
the
no,
tools
I
are
agree.
there, they're easy to use, go do it.
Where did your interest in film come?
Well, I actually studied film, radio and television at Algonquin.
Okay.
Back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Went through that, had a great time, and then did absolutely nothing with it.
Really?
And
You're
worked-
not alone, by the way.
And
Many
then-
of us fell into that position. Yeah.
So for various circumstances, as in I needed to make a living, I went into technology. So I worked in technology for 40 years, which I really enjoyed for a while, and then woke up one morning and said, I really wanted to do films when I was a kid. So I decided to stop that, and I started OCAN with my co-founder, Jeff Paul.
Yeah.
And since then, I have produced 7 or 8 films, made 7 or 8 films on my own, and
Nice.
have a number of my own projects that I'm developing right now.
Excellent. Good for you.
Yeah,
I'm
so I mean,
excited.
I'm having so much fun doing it.
Yeah, no
I
kidding.
mean, that's the whole point.
People can get tickets online. You have to. Is that
Yes,
the
you
best
can.
way?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, tickets can be bought online. They can be bought at the door.
Okay.
Students, discounts available. All they need
Oh,
to do
excellent.
is show ID at the door, and the students can buy tickets. They can be bought online. They can be bought on the Bytown site. You can buy them at the door.
Excellent.
Each one of the nights.
So a lot
for
of
sure.
opportunity. Thank you so much, Blair. Really appreciate your time again today.
Fantastic. Thanks again.
Hey, my pleasure. OCANFilmFest.ca, by the way, to find out about the entire schedule and to get your tickets. We'll be back with more right after this. Well, here's something scary on Halloween, and that's called phishing, hackers, ransomware. All of those things are very scary, and many small businesses certainly worry about it. October, by the way, is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so this is a great opportunity to talk about it, but we should be talking about it all year round. My next guest has a wonderful book. It is called, it's right here. It's called Hack Proof. As Sergey Poltev joins me, founder and CEO of Capital Tech as well. Welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Nice having you.
There, as I mentioned off the top, Sergey, there's many threats that we're going to talk about today. What is the main threat right now that businesses in particular need to be
Yeah,
concerned
absolutely.
about?
So it's particularly small businesses are being affected right now big time. So over 50% of cyber attacks happens towards small businesses, and we're talking about local mom and pop shops, smaller businesses, around 50 and under employees. And those threats are coming from phishing, which is basically through email when somebody gets email links.
Right.
Also through the website, people can get through your email through the website. And ransomware. Ransomware is a big thing. So it's where the hackers can really demand money for your information or access to your things. So it's really scary.
So how do they end up sort of taking over a business's computer? What do they do exactly?
Well, it's kind of like a 4 stages approach when it comes to hackers attack timeline, per se. The first stage is when the hackers do research in preparation, and they look at your footprints online. So they Google you. They'll start all with a Google search.
Okay.
All right. So they find you, like your name, who you are, what you like, you don't like. So they start learning more information, and they start using AI systems to make an entrance. Send you a fake email, things like that. So they can. The second stage is when they actually get into your system, like a computer or email, and phishing, like the phishing email, could be. It's one of the most popular things right now for hackers. So once they get into your system, they sit and wait, and we call it data exfiltration. So when they're actually sitting and waiting, and most businesses don't even know that this is the stage where they are in. They don't know if they're hacked or not. And lastly, it's the recovery stage when disasters happen and you have to work.
So what tools do they use in order to do this?
Yeah, so hackers use physical tools and digital tools, the software. In fact, like you can buy a USB stick online, and it'll transform your regular computer to the hacker's computer.
Really?
And yes, absolutely. It's for
So there's such a thing as a hacker's computer.
Yeah, hacker's computer is very simple. It's just the software, and you load it on your computer, and now you have arsenal of different digital tools. Wow. Yeah. So for instance, you can get a backdoor to LinkedIn and get everybody's email addresses of company's LinkedIn account.
Oh my goodness.
But what I'm mostly fascinated about is the physical tools. So I actually brought some props.
Yeah, which one do you want me to show the camera
with me?
for? This
Maybe
one?
take
Oh,
a
this
look
one
at
here?
this one.
Okay, this is called the Flipper.
Yeah,
Tell me
the
about
Flipper.
this.
It's very friendly looking device, but it's a very dangerous device. It's actually banned in Canada, but I was able to order it online, no problem. So government doesn't do a good job actually, policing that. Now this device is very interesting because it unlocks the cars, the garage doors, anything that's wireless. Like let's say if you have a wireless keyboard, you can intercept anything that you type.
What?
Yes. This is.
So this is what they're using to steal cars. I mean,
Yes,
you mentioned earlier what about 1,000 cars?
over
around?
1,000 cars stolen in Ottawa up to date.
Alone
in
Just
Ottawa.
in Ottawa.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, you brought some other physical tools of the trade here. Tell me about this
This is
one.
more a serious one. This can hack into a plane. It can read the plane, how far is the plane, and actually signals on a plane, things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this one is
And this
called
one,
the Pineapple Mark 7.
It's called Wi-Fi Pineapple, and hackers use this to hack into Wi-Fi. So every Wi-Fi has a password, but you can bypass it using a device like this. You can attach it to a car, just drive around the building, or you can now apply it to the drone and fly up to collect and get into the Wi-Fi. Yes.
Okay, so the question then everybody at home is asking themselves is how do I protect myself from all of these things, including the software?
Of course. Well, my advice is the book. That's why I wrote my book, Hack Proof. It's a guide to cybersecurity to small businesses.
A bestseller, by the way.
Yeah,
everybody at
Amazon
home.
bestseller.
Yeah.
Thanks, Derek. And what my advice there is don't be overconfident. When I go to small businesses and talk to them about these things, like, hey, did you know that Wi-Fi, you can get hacked right now, or email, they say, well, no, I have an antivirus, or I have an IT guy. Well, they didn't even, I didn't even tell them how I can help them with. And so this overconfidence, the thinking they're safe, gets them in trouble. It's their last few words.
Right, yeah, exactly. So can you give an example? Obviously, we're not going to name a company or individual, but what's an example that you've seen recently?
Actually, this morning I had a call from CPA firm, small CPA firm, 5 employees.
Okay.
They had email breach. Their client started emailing them and calling them saying that there's an enormous amount of emails coming in from your domain, from your account, asking us to fill up these forms. And once they click on those forms, these clients getting attacked, right? So the company, when they called us, we explained them, okay, this is an impersonation attack. That's the email hack, and this is what's really the biggest concern now. Emails is a new vector, big vector for hackers to get into your system. Yes, and now this company is struggling. They shut down their operation and they're trying to fix all these issues.
You have a website called hackproofscore.com. What's the purpose of that website?
Yeah, so absolutely. So remember when I said that some businesses, they don't even know if they're hacked or not, or if they're hackable or not.
Right.
So I've actually created a free tool. It's called Hack Proof Score. It's the small website. It only takes 60 seconds. Business owner just needs to enter their domain name of their business or their website address. And within 60 seconds, you get a report, a small report that tells you if your business is safe or not. And if it's not, I can give them a free advice, and there's a report and guidelines what to do. So Hack-Proof Score is the remediation. Hack-Proof Book is my book to get started, and there's a quiz on page 155 that every business owner can take also to understand about more cybersecurity.
We're going to have you back because there's so much more to talk about. We talked right before the show and said we should have you on more often because this is a huge issue, in particular for small businesses. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. I can tell you at the beginning, I know the Snowsuit Fund probably would have said to themselves, I hope this doesn't go on for 43 years, but the need continues to grow. And the Snowsuit Fund providing snowsuits to thousands of children here in our community, and they've got some wonderful events coming up. Of course, you can donate at any time, by the way. But here to tell us about the Snowsuit Fund and the great need and some of those events, I'm joined by Martin Mass. He is the chairperson of the Snowsuit Fund. Welcome back. Great to have you here, Martin.
Thanks. Always glad to be here.
And I think I'm probably right in saying that, right? I'm sure you don't want to be sitting here talking about the 43rd season of the Snowsuit Fund, but what a wonderful success story it is in itself, right, Martin?
Exactly. I mean, it'd be great if we didn't have the need, but we do, and we live in a cold climate, so really snowsuits are a necessity, particularly in Ottawa, so the Snowsuit Fund is there to satisfy the need or to fill the need until we can get rid of child poverty.
What kind of need are we looking at now?
So right now, I mean, we give out, or we're estimating that we're going to give out 17,000 snowsuits. I think we'll probably exceed it. We're about 20% above where we were this time last year. We've already given out nearly 9,000 snowsuits for this year already, and it's not even Halloween.
Right.
So we'll see, but right now our projections are 17,000, and that's the need that we are filling, but there's probably more out there, and we're looking to find out where that is and try to get as many snowsuits out as possible.
And how do you reach, what is the outreach? I know you have various partnerships as well, is that right?
Well, we've got a lot of partnerships with a lot of community groups whose members use our services. We've, in the last couple of years in particular, we've had a close relationship with BGC Ottawa, Boys and Girls Club Ottawa. They're a recipient of the 50-50 that we'll talk about funds, but also their clients are our clients. So we try to get the word out through interviews like this, that we're out there. But little things, like I will often tell my Uber driver about it because, you know, people involved in the gig economy, maybe not getting enough to particularly if they're newly arrived in Canada.
Right.
So there's little ways that you can get the word out. So we want people to donate, but we also want people to know that we're there and we can help the communities.
And we should also mention, Martin, these are brand new snowsuits,
Right.
Like brand new, never worn before, right?
There's a simplicity to the Snowsuit Fund that's really easy to understand. $50 buys a brand new snowsuit for a kid in Ottawa. Right. There's lots of other messages, but if you boil it down, that's what it's about. Donations and generosity of Ottawans and people in the community of $50 gets a brand new snowsuit.
Yeah.
And what we try to do is have different styles and different options for the kids, because you don't want kids going to school and everyone to know that they're wearing a snowsuit. Snowsuit.
Yeah.
The point of the snowsuit is to allow them to participate, be with their friends, and so we try to have a couple of different models per size, per gender, and so that everyone has the ability to have a brand new snowsuit and be able to enjoy the winter.
Martin, am I right if you donate by December 31st, there's a matching program?
Yeah, that's right. So any donation is appreciated. You can volunteer, but what's nice is until December 31st, we've got a matching partner with some corporate sponsors who've decided to match. All that information is on our website, snowsuitfund.com. but there's a matching program until December 31st.
You mentioned that word volunteer, which is near and dear to our hearts here at Rogers TV, because everybody in this room is a volunteer doing the show, and almost everybody in the control room. Are you always looking for volunteers?
Yeah, we have volunteers. We're lucky because people like to come. It's a wonderful day. People who come once, come back, because there's nothing better than giving a tangible thing to a little kid, little boy or girl who'd leave the snowsuit fund depot with a snowsuit fund, with a snowsuit, sorry. And so we have a lot of people who come, but we are always looking for volunteers at the depot, volunteers at our events. Always happy to have people come and volunteer.
There's another perfect segue. You mentioned events. Let's talk about Dinner in a Box. That's back again this year.
Right.
It is a must for people because it's special.
Right. It's special. This year, they're always special.
Yeah.
They're great. So what it is it's a dinner party in a box. So it's a dinner party because there's a lot of stuff involved.
Yeah.
So you get a dinner curated by Bacta. This year's theme is La Dolce Vita, so it's Italian.
Okay.
Can't go wrong with Italian. But there's cocktails, wine, and some swag, some fancy swag that goes to it. There's instructions on how to make the meal, and there's even a curated set list by DJ Andrew Carter that you can listen to while you have it. So
such a great idea. I
it's
love
plug
it.
and play dinner, so it's fantastic.
And you mentioned the 50-50. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so we're launching the 50-50 for the city, which is run on Rogers Radio, Shay, and other stations,
Kiss and Shay,
Kiss and Shay, and so and it runs. It's starting on November 17th.
Okay.
November
I have it here.
November 25th.
November 25th. There
and
you
the
go.
draw is January 17th, and so that'll launch on November 25th, and we have weekly prizes that are donated by Canadian Tire.
Excellent.
So incentive to buy early and often.
And we'll have you guys back for the Snowball, because if you've never been to the Snowball, this is really their signature event. It is spectacular this year on February the 12th, and we'll have Martin and the team back to talk about that in the new year. We'll be back with more Daytime right after this. All right, let's wrap up by going over so many events we talked about on today's show. First up, Artissima 2024. That is coming up November 8th to the 10th. The Friday night is 7 to 11, and then Saturday, Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. That is going to be at the All Saints event space, spectacular space, and this is an art show put on by artists. They're located at 330 Laurier Street East, and you can visit the website for more information. The OCAN Film Fest at the Bytown Cinema from November 7th to the 9th. You can get your tickets online. Tickets available at the door as well. And don't forget, there's a student discount. You just have to show your student ID. OCANFilmFest.ca for that one. The Dinner Party in a Box, November 30th. 50-50 for the city, November 25th. The Snowball, February the 12th. Again, we'll have them back on as we get closer to that, but snowsuitfund.com to make your donation. And the Ottawa Wildflower Seed Library giveaways. That is the next 6 weeks, each and every Saturday, starting this Saturday. If you want to see where they are, because they're all around the city, you can go to wildflowerseedlibrary.ca. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching this edition of Daytime. We'll see you next time.